Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Sometimes it's hard to wrap our minds around what exactly is Jesus saying. For those who watched the series The Chosen, which is the story of Jesus and his disciples, the one on the Sermon on the Mount is especially powerful, and Jesus is preaching this, and Matthew is trying to write this stuff down. And toward the end of the episode, he says, I'm not understanding this. And Jesus says to him, Matthew, it's a map. Where you seek these things, these people that I have shared, that's where you'll find me. And if you look at it through that lens, it makes all the sense in the world. The first ones are people for whom this life has been hard. This life has been unjust, that they have suffered, or they've made mistakes and have paid heavily for them. The rest of it is what we're called to do as Jesus' disciples. We're supposed to be peacemakers. We're supposed to work for righteousness. We're supposed to be able to stand and speak truth to power. But we're also supposed to be with those who mourn and are poor. I'd like to do a little exercise with you tonight. So I ask you to close your eyes. And when I'm going to read these again, but with a few examples of each one. And as we go through each one, think about who in your life or who in our society it's describing. Blessed are the poor in spirit, the marginalized, the sinner, the person who does not fit in, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn losses of love, of freedom, of dignity, of home, the refugee, of identity, the exile, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, the unseen, unappreciated worker, the physically, emotionally, spiritually abused, the one who is bullied, for they will inherit the land. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for the one who teaches through deeds of compassion, the one who stands in solidarity with the marginalized, the peaceful protester, they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, the one who opens doors and hearts and minds, the one who forgives, the person of hospitality, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the clean of heart, the one who holds no grudges, the visionary, the one who welcomes the least one, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, those who strive to create a space for others to be at home, for those with the vision to see from another perspective, for those who accept forgiveness, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those persecuted for the sake of righteousness, those who remain faithful to love despite opposition, for those who hold space for others to become themselves, those whose witness speak truth to power, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. For when we do these things, we are the salt of the earth. We are the light of the world. Now, I have seen in recent months a number of examples of people who really lived this out. And one was on our mission trip to Puerto Rico, where we got back last week. And there were half of the people from here and half of the people from my old parish, multicultural, multi-generational. And we went down to Puerto Rico to do hurricane reconstruction. And on one of the houses, there was a man who was mourning several losses. And the first day he kind of watched us. But in the other days, he worked right alongside of us, and you could see people getting close to him and sharing with him, and him with them, his burdens. And to watch this man brighten up and enliven and have a totally different affect between Monday and Friday was just amazing. And it's because many people in this group, many people from this parish in this group, saw this person as somebody who was mourning and sought to comfort him, to tell him that he was okay, to tell him to be the face of God for him. One of the things we saw in Puerto Rico was so many people would stop by and thank us, not the people whose houses we were working on, just people in the neighborhood. And one of the things we learned was that this nonprofit that we work with, back a year ago, they had 11 teams all lined to come in to do hurricane reconstruction. And this was after Fiona. All of them canceled because a week after Fiona, Ian hit Florida, and they all shifted away from Puerto Rico to go to Florida. When we talk about being there for those in the margins, it's to remember those that this country often forgets. A part of our country, a part of our people who have suffered greatly, both economically and colonialism, but also through 2 hurricanes in which the resources that they've been given are much less than when a hurricane hits the mainland. Another time I saw this acted out was I went to an interfaith breakfast, and there I heard the stories of Brother Carl Hardwick talking about how he had worked for 40 years to try and de-escalate violence in our city. How organizations like his and Mothers United Against Violence work so hard with families who have been victims of violence, to walk with them through the trauma. How other organizations are working on the ground, helping kids make better choices with their lives. These are the peacemakers in our community. One of the things that we did with GHIAA last year was we had a number of house meetings, and we asked people, what is it that are keeping you up at night? And what the churches in our organization from Hartford heard over and over again, I'm afraid for my children's safety. I'm afraid when my children go out the door. I know other families who have lost children. I know people who random drive-by shootings. We need to do something about gun violence. And so what GHIAA has decided to do is to pool our resources and push for a bill that will allow small organizations like this that rely mostly on donations and private foundations for their funding to get through the year, to get through 2 years. But it doesn't allow them to expand to meet the needs of the community. It doesn't allow them to attract and retain people that are going to make the difference in these families. And what it causes is the people they have are going in so many different directions they get burned out. So what GHIAA is going to ask when the legislation is proposed is a funding stream over 5 years of $20 million to go to organizations like this, to help them to be peacemakers on our behalf. We prioritize so many things in this state. Shouldn't peace be one of them? Shouldn't the care of our children, because as us as Catholics, whether we live in West Hartford or Glastonbury or Newington or Enfield, These are our children. These are the future of this state and of this country. And to be able to provide them with a safe environment is one of the gifts that our faith calls us to. So the session is always unpredictable as to when these things come up, but at some point I will be asking you to get on the phone with your legislator and say, I live in Glastonbury, but I want you to focus $20 million over 5 years for this cause. Because as a Franciscan parish, our priorities are justice, peace, and care of creation. And this allows us, in this city that we call our spiritual home,